Comrades, and fellow members of the Labor Party and supporters of the Labor Party here in the Labor heartland of Grayndler. We entered into this campaign with Grayndler as a marginal seat, with a two-party preferred vote at the last election of around about 54%. We have achieved primary vote swings in just about every booth in this electorate today. It will result in a two-party preferred vote of above 70%. And it is, in my view, still very possible, with some strong Labor boosts to come in, that we will win this electorate on primaries. This, however, is not a great night for Labor. One of the reasons why we are in the Labor Party is that we understand that you need to be in government to make a real difference. That is one of the distinctions between us and the indulgence of the Greens political party. Tonight, what we've seen is a rejection in booths around Grayndler of the political negativity that the Greens political campaign has run on. I attended a forum on Tuesday night with the Greens political party candidate. The Liberals showed their contempt for this electorate by not even showing up to the forum. The Greens political party candidate managed to give a speech, indeed a number of speeches, without mentioning Tony Abbott or the threat that the Liberal Party represents to progressive issues in this country. Can I say this, that I have been very proud to be the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia and we have been a good government under both Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard. Under Kevin Rudd, we ratified the Kyoto Protocol as our first act of government because we believe in acting on climate change, and we will never walk away from action on climate change. We apologise to the stolen generations. Even with people who are now Tory frontbenchers potentially walking out in disgust at that apology. We saw Australia through the global financial crisis. Right now, we have created almost 1 million jobs. We have low inflation. We have low interest rates. We have higher workforce participation. We have less industrial disputes, and we leave Australia with a AAA credit rating. We have the highest ever pension increases in Australia's history, delivered by this government. On the environment, we priced carbon. We solved the issue of the Tasmanian forests that have been in dispute for so long. We resolved the issue of the Murray-Darling Basin, talked about for decades, delivered by Labor. We have the world's largest marine parks. So I say to people who've been supporting the Greens political party, if you want real change and a real political party that does something about climate change and the environment, join the Australian Labor Party and take up the We have built more social housing units in Australia since 2007 than had ever been built by any government. As Infrastructure Minister, we doubled the roads budget, we increased the rail budget by more than 10 times, and we invested more into urban public transport than all our predecessors combined. Tony Abbott, in less than 100 words on Thursday, in this flimsy, pathetic excuse for a costings document that he put out, dismissed every single dollar into urban public transport in the future. What that is consigning Australians who live in cities to urban congestion. And I say, both to Tony Abbott and to the media who let him get away with it, I say we will hold you to account for that abrogation of your responsibility. But if there's anything that defined the future versus the past that Tony Abbott represents, it is the National Broadband Network. This week alone and during the campaign, I met a woman in Kiama who is getting her health issues, I won't go into the detail, dealt with by uploading and talking to a nurse in real time. That will be gone for people with the fraud ban policy of the opposition. I've met businesses like the one in Launceston that's expanded and is now employing hundreds of people, Ortec in Launceston on Wednesday. A business that is exporting software to Germany. Australia competing with the world through the National Broadband Network. Importantly, one of the most, just brutal cuts that were in their flimsy 8-pager on Thursday was the cut to NICTA. Now, NICTA is the National ICT Australia organisation. It exists at Everleigh. If you have a tertiary institution, you need base funding in order to exist. The base funding is $42 million a year. It employs 500 people. They have 250 Australians doing PhDs. 250 PhD students. The brightest people. The people who, frankly, I just stand in awe of. One of the people I met with on Thursday is the person who is responsible for the cochlear ear implant that allows deaf people to hear. What he is now working on, and is advanced, is a new using information technology to send signals by an implant into the spine that will allow people to walk without pain who have spinal damage. Guess what they did on Thursday? And I have to tell you, because not one newspaper took it up. Not one newspaper took it up. They reduced their budget to zero. $42 million to zero. So Labor has a great responsibility. Labor has a great responsibility to take up these issues. Labor is stronger than any single election or any individual. We are a movement. the betterment of all Australians. The big vision, the big pictures, it's always been Labor. Whether it be in history with the creation of Medicare and superannuation, or whether it be the great reforms over the last 6 years, of which each and every Labor member should be proud. Can you imagine the Tories thinking of the National Disability Insurance Scheme? Can you imagine them coming up with the Better Schools Plan? Can you imagine them coming up with the National Broadband Network? Can you imagine them coming up with national health legislation, national dental care? Can you imagine them having the wit to solve the Murray-Darling Basin or to take on the issue of climate change? It is only Labor that ever deals with the big issues. And if it's the case, as looks likely, that Tony Abbott is in a position to form government, he will form government without having a policy on education. He will form government without having put out a policy on health. He will form government without having put out a policy on infrastructure. One of the lessons that the Labor Party needs to learn and needs to show in the coming days and weeks is that when we talk about ourselves, people switch off. We need to talk about the country and we need to talk about Australians and what is of interest to them. And when we are not united, we will be punished for it. But we have been a good government, so let no one in Labor be tempted to talk down our achievements. Just like the Hawke-Keating government are regarded as great governments that have achieved a great legacy that led to 22 years of consecutive economic growth. The Rudd and Gillard governments are governments of which I've been proud to serve each and every single day. They are both good human beings. They both have acted in the interests of our nation at all times. And in Kevin Rudd, in seeing us through the global financial crisis, and in Julia Gillard, in managing a minority government under incredibly difficult circumstances, and delivering win after win. Now, Tony Abbott, from 2010, said he wanted to wreck the Parliament. He's not a conservative, he's a reactionary. He had no respect for institutions. Labor respects institutions and respect processes, and we respect outcomes of elections, because democracy is something that has to be respected without qualification, whether you agree with the outcome or not. But what we will also respect is the mandate that I've been given here in Grayndler and the mandate that Labor representatives have been given. And that is taking action on climate change. That is taking action so that education is based upon need. That is taking action to look after those who most need support in the community, not those who least need support, like through their outrageous paid parental leave scheme, aimed at those who will benefit to the tune of $75,000 while ripping off the low-income superannuation payments, while ripping off many of the benefits that are paid to the lowest paid in our community. We have a great legacy. Tonight, I honour it. I honour my colleagues who've worked very hard, including some fallen colleagues tonight. But I do say this. There was a potential for tonight to be about whether the Labor Party continues to be a viable opposition. After the results that occurred in New South Wales and in Queensland, in terms of substantial swings and decimations of parliamentary parties, That has not happened at this election. That has not happened. And it's happened because we took some tough and difficult decisions in the interests, long-term, of the Labor Party. I am incredibly honoured to be your representative in the Federal Parliament. I've served you loyally and to the best of my ability for now 6 terms, and tonight I have been elected overwhelmingly for a 7th term. You can't do anything unless you're a local member first. But I think we have the best, most principled and active Labor Party membership in the country, and I'm very proud of that, and you should be proud of yourself. So I thank all of you collectively for that, but you'll excuse me if I single out a couple of people. Firstly, my campaign director, Daniel Barber. Campaign director. You might have noticed I wasn't in Grayndler the whole campaign. I launched 16 campaigns. I visited more than 70 seats. I visited every state and territory at least twice. Queensland, 6 times. Melbourne, 5 times. You know, it was a busy campaign. Last week, one day, I woke up, had breakfast in Launceston and dinner in Darwin, as you do. And because of that, I relied upon not just Daniel, but my entire team and all of you. Very much so. And to all of you, I thank you, but I particularly want to single out both my electorate and ministerial staff, the best ministerial office in the country, bar none ever. And can I say this? I've still got a job. Many of them don't. Not once during the campaign, not once, have any of them thought about themselves. So thank you. Mind you, they'll get jobs that pay twice as much and have to work half as hard. That's working for me, and I have no doubt about that, because they are people of extraordinary talent and commitment. And one of the things you learn as a minister, people walk through your door and when they leave you go, gee, that bloke earns $1 million a year. Shake your head. Never let it be said that the private sector are geniuses and the public sector are duds. I've met them. I've been the infrastructure minister. The great people in the private sector that do this, people who have no idea how the Parliament or the government or the economy works. They'll pay a lot of money. So I'm sure that those who have to move on will be successful. To my wonderful family, Carmel and Nathan. I've been with Carmel for 25 years. She has never ironed a shirt before this campaign. Ever. She did this campaign. First time. There's only 2, I think. I don't want to exaggerate the assistance. a joke. Carmel and Nathan have been fantastic. Nathan has my sense of optimism about the world. He was convinced that Tony Abbott would lose his seat. The truth is, we've been up against it from day one, and you know, in terms of some of the predictions, have not proven to be true. But to Carmel and Nathan, you have been absolutely sensational. In terms of, I left home that Sunday before the last sitting week and said, by the way, you might have to come down later on in the week. There'll be something going on. They have been absolutely just extraordinary in their support, always, but particularly during what has been a very difficult couple of months. So, thank you. Nathan's taking credit for all the swing today, Lewisham Public School. When I was there, I'm not sure that the balloon fight between Nathan and Felix won me votes. But, you know, who knows? Maybe it did. In terms of the campaign, look, it has been a sensational campaign. And one of the things that we have in this electorate understand more than most. I had a serious discussion with a couple of people on polling booths late this afternoon, when you had seriously at least 200 people handing out to get up today in Grayndler. Like, why? Why? Over what form of, and this is not a criticism of any of the individuals, but progressives need to understand that the enemy in the debate is not between Labor and the Greens. It's between Labor and Tony Abbott and the Tories. That's the divide in Australia. It has an impact, there's no doubt, that some of the absurd critiques that occurred of the government's actions during this years rolled us back. The truth is, had the five Green senators got up off their butt, walked across and voted with the two Libs, we would not now be debating a price on carbon. It would be entrenched. It would have been entrenched in December 2009. And whilst I respect different views, and it's important that we're sort of pluralist in these attitudes, some of the approaches have, I think, very much been rejected today in the ballot result, because people do understand, I think, apart from the sort of insiders, they do understand that politics is not about the sort of debate that we saw at Marrickville Town Hall between myself and Hall Greenland, pretending that Tony Abbott doesn't exist. The debate is about to get very real, and it's a debate between competing visions for Australia. An Australia that believes in equity and a fair go for all. An Australia that believes in removing discrimination wherever we find it. An Australia believes that government has a role in intervening into the economy in order to achieve outcomes and improve living standards. An Australia that believes that we have a responsibility to be judged not by how we look after the top end of town, by abolishing the carbon price and the mining tax. Like the miners, they really need a tax break, don't they? Seriously, that's their policy. That's their policy. It reached $2.5 billion out of the Regional Infrastructure Fund and stops superannuation being increased from 9 to 12%. Australians understand, I think, that we don't stand for those things that Tony Abbott stands for. We do need to accept some responsibility for our mistakes, however, including talking about ourselves rather than them. And I accept as much responsibility as anyone else
as a senior member of the government. Can I say this though? There wasn't a single day in office under either Kevin Rudd or Julia Gillard where I didn't wake up in the morning and go to bed with one objective. It wasn't backgrounding journalists, it wasn't undermining anyone. It was the cause of labour.